Is prosperity found in our lives through the pursuit of balance in our health, our work, our family, and our interests? How important is fun and a pursuit of joy in our prosperity? Let's talk to someone who has built their entire life on these principles. This is Prosperity and Something Greater. My guest today is Dr. Hartley Miltchin. Hartley is a practicing podiatrist from Toronto, Ontario, and he's a surgeon who has been focused on a very specific surgical procedure called minimally invasive foot surgery, MIS, for over 35 years. And as such, he's a pioneer and a leader in this area. And he has helped literally thousands of people from across the world correct their bunions and their hammer toes. He's also an avid student of superb practice management, and he runs his practice like a finely tuned machine. He's also a delight. You'll hear about his remarkable shoe collection, which he's been creating for years. And I know you'll enjoy and learn from my brilliant, fun friend, Dr. Hartley Miltchin. Okay, well, welcome everybody to today's podcast. This is Rem Jackson, and of course now with me I have really just a dear friend that I met because he invited me to come all the way to Canada to speak to doctors up there, and I've had the nicest time, and I saw one of the best run conferences I've ever seen. He and his team is family, and there's just so much that's so interesting about you, Hartley. I just enjoy it. So welcome, my friend, to the podcast. It's great to have you with me today. I've been looking forward to this.
Thank you so much, Rem. And truthfully, I've been looking forward to it as well. And I just want to mention one thing before we begin. When you came to the conference, you're going to hear this again. What I told the audience was, although Rem isn't a podiatrist, he knows more about podiatry practice than anyone on the planet, and you're terrific.
Well, thank you so much. And I remember when you introduced me that way when I came up there, I did tell you later, I said, that's the best introduction I've ever gotten from anybody ever. So I appreciate it so much. You don't know. It's been such a delight for me. And 2 years ago, when I was inducted into the Podiatry Hall of Fame, I was shocked personally. First of all, I didn't know I was eligible because I'm not a doctor. And I found out that was the case. And then I found out I was voted that by doctors all over the globe. I thought, wow. So thank you. Thank you so much. It makes me very happy and very proud.
Well deserved, Rem.
I've had these glimpses into your life, and I'd love to get some of your insight and your thoughts about what prosperity means to you. So how would you define prosperity for you, Hartley?
Well, I think unlike some people, I define prosperity and success as two different things. And to me, what prosperity means is a balance in your life between your health, your work, your family, and your interests. And that's how you prosper, with proper balance in your life. And it's not measured in dollars and cents. That's more the definition of success. And that's my opinion.
Oh, I think that's great. You and I were talking a little before we started the recording, and we were just talking about how important the way you live your life and your mindset really is to your prosperity, your overall happiness. So Hartley, I'd like people to get a chance to meet you. I mean, most people don't actually know you down in the States. I mean, many do, but a lot don't. Not nearly as many as know you in Canada. So what was the defining moment or event that really brought you to your career path? Just a little bit of your story, because I think it's pretty interesting.
I was definitely interested in medicine. I knew I was going to go into some sort of medicine when I was very young because I was very fascinated about how things work and especially the human body. And my parents actually used to go to podiatrists on a regular basis, and I used to tag along with them. And I had discussions with this very, very wonderful man. And he said, listen, there's a big shortage of podiatrists here in Canada. It's a great profession to be in. You can do whatever you like, whether it's sports or pediatric, dermatology, surgery, whatever you want to evolve into. It's a great profession. And in high school, I visited, at the time, there were 5 podiatry schools in the United States. So I visited all 5 and I became interested. And of course, I went into sciences in university, and I really wasn't having a great time in university. But to apply to podiatry school, you need a Bachelor of Science degree and also take the MCATs. And I said to my parents, I applied to all the podiatry schools, and after 3 years of university, which you in the USA call college, I said to them, if I don't get accepted to podiatry school, I'm not going back to university for another year because I'm just not enjoying it. I'm not learning what I want to learn about, and that's the human body and medicine. And luckily enough, I got accepted to all the schools and chose Chicago. And really, the reason I think I chose Chicago was the location, because the other 4 schools were in seedy areas of the cities, and Chicago was in like the nicest area. So I felt kind of safe coming from Canada. And I chose Chicago, and I have no regrets. It was just a wonderful experience. And as far as a career choice, I have absolutely no regrets. I've been doing it a very long time, and I love every day I wake up and I'm able to go to the office.
I can tell. I mean, that's the thing. I just know how much you really love your profession. You know, it's funny. They've made it a little bit better now. There's only I think 7 podiatry schools in the country, in the US now, 7 or 8. Lost count. I've been to almost all of them. And here it's as if at one time they really had said, what's the worst place we could put this school? Let's put it there. The most dangerous spot. This is a kind of a thing. It's gotten better, but I do know, and that's gotten better in the last few years. So that's funny. Well,
I'll never forget when I went for the interview in New York. I flew in, and there was a guard standing there, and I was honestly really quite frightened. So I called the airline and I said, is there an earlier flight? And a taxi picked me up, and I left earlier than my scheduled flight. I was honestly frightened.
Tell everybody where you practice now, by the way, just so they know where in Canada you're from.
I call it TOEronto.
Right. Exactly. Well said. Well said, Dr. Toto. So, okay. Well, now we all have challenges. We all have obstacles that we face, every single one of us. Can you share what you deal with on your daily journey? Like, what can trip you up, Hartley?
Well, in Canada, it's really a different environment than it is in the United States. Now, I've practiced in both countries, so I know. But as far as where I practice here in Ontario, when I arrived back to practice here, the population generally didn't even know what a podiatrist was. So that was a bit of an obstacle. But as some of the things that are obstacles that I've overcome over the years but are still present today, podiatrists where I practice, we can't use the doctor title, so we can't call ourselves doctor. We can order lab tests, or let's say culture and sensitivities. We can't perform diagnostic ultrasounds. We can't prescribe narcotics or opioids. We have no hospital privileges. We're limited to soft tissue surgery in the rear foot and bone surgery from the metatarsals distally. And our government stopped licensing podiatrists in 1992. So there hasn't been a podiatrist that's been able to come back here since 1992. And that poses a large problem along the line because after practicing for 39 years, and I have a successful practice, but I have no one to sell it to because there's no podiatrist. I practice in a city of about 3.5 million people, and there's probably about 12 podiatrists, and there are probably only 2 or 3 that do any sort of surgery. So we're a dying breed where I practice, and that's really
Yeah.
unfortunate. But with having said all that, I've really gotten by all those obstacles. And quite often when I watch your presentation, you show a slide of a boulder in the road, a big boulder that you can't pass. Well, really, if you have the real focus and the real mindset, there's a way to get either under, over, around, or through that boulder if you're really determined. But if you turn around, then you failed and you can't move forward. So you've got to be there and figure out how to get past that boulder.
Yeah.
Whenever you put that slide up, I think the same way. It's real important for people to understand that. We're always going to face barriers, but you got to have the mindset and the focus and the determination to get by them and conquer them.
I always say every single one of us gets 3 stink bombs a year. And stink bombs, I always use that term because no one else really uses that. And they're just like, this is, oh man, this is going to be terrible, but within 2 or 3 weeks, we've solved it all. We're moving on. You've always landed on your feet. You always will. But people think that their goal is to try to avoid having these problems or these obstacles show up. That's not the way it works. However life is arranged or set up, it doesn't work like that. And you think, it only happens to me, but it happens to absolutely everybody. And that's why that book I always recommend, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It just says, that's what the old Stoics used to say. There's brambles in the path, go around. The cucumber is bitter, throw it out. Don't worry about it. Accept that that's part of life. And then do the kind of things that you do, Hartley. I mean, you are a excellent practice manager, administrator, executive. I mean, you have made a career of being good, really good at systems and protocols, running things and working with your team. And that's what enables you then to deal with these things when they show up because you're good at what you do. Would you agree with that?
I do wholeheartedly. And I couldn't do it without a wonderful staff. And my staff has been with me, all of them, for 21 years. So we're more like a family, and I couldn't do what I do without an amazing staff. And it's real important. You got to have a good team.
Well, I've seen that. I've watched it. I mean, I've met them. They work with you to run that conference. The thing I see that happens with you and your team almost all the time is you're having fun. You're always enjoying yourselves. You're having fun.
We are.
Well, what's the top strategy you use to keep yourself on the rails and not let yourself slide around and go into a bad mindset?
You've got to focus. You mentioned mindset, and it's of primary importance, but you've got to focus. You've got to focus on your goals, and it's non-stop thinking. And you have to put yourself in the patient's position, and you've got to check what their experience is going to be. Again, staff plays an important part because they're the first interaction the patient has, and it's a reflection on you. And that includes your clinic as well. And I mean, that's a whole other set of topics as far as practice management is concerned. But take your mistakes, learn from them, because that it's trial and error, and you've got to be very, very focused and nonstop think. Take a break from work. I'll tell you, I was shut down for about 4 months when the pandemic hit us, and I took the time to reevaluate how I was practicing. And I always had a successful practice, but I figured out I was practicing incorrectly. And it took me the time to stop and think, relax, and reevaluate the way I was practicing. So now I've decreased my patient load by 75%, I'm only working about 3 days a week, and I financially I could have never imagined this because I streamlined how I was practicing. It's not to say I didn't enjoy what I was doing, but my staff and I have less stress now. We're just enjoying ourselves more. And there's reasons for that because of what we focus on particularly. And we know what we're good at, what we're getting good outcomes with, and what we enjoy doing. So it's worked very well for us. But I would suggest to others that take some time for yourself. Look at what you're doing. Try and set yourself apart from everybody else and really focus on what you're good at. For instance, if you're really interested in sports medicine, focus your practice on sports medicine. Set yourself apart from everybody else. I believe in choosing a niche, branding yourself, and of course, social marketing. But you've got to put yourself in the patient experience and really understand what they're going to feel like when they visit you. Take the time and reevaluate. It works.
Yeah, one of the things that I've really tried to help my doctors with is, during this time, many of them had reduced number of patient volume. They just, less days, spacing people out because of social distancing and all the need for that. And, many of them would report 2020 as still being one of their most successfully financially years they've had. My question is, when you can fill your reception room back up with all those people that we don't have to worry about keeping them so distanced apart, do you really want to do that? I mean, why not take that time? I mean, compress them. I mean, you can still put them in, you can see more people in an hour, but why not instead use that to either A, find some time to work on your practice and your management and do that, or B, I don't know, go golfing or fishing or running, whatever it is you love to do. Why give it back? You learned it. You could do this. Why give it back? A lot of them, like you, are taking that to heart. So that's great advice. That's just super. Hey, on the subject of, I don't know if this is a part of prosperity, but Artie, one of the really cool things that I've seen about you is you have a collection of shoes. How long have you been collecting shoes? Let me ask you.
I honestly don't remember. I'm really poor with dates, but it started off when I was living in Chicago. I used to watch Michael Jordan play, and I was a big fan. And when I got back, I purchased a pair of Michael Jordan autograph worn shoes, probably the first he ever wore. And I bought it from the Chicago Bull. The team had this auction site, whatever. And I had it sitting on the credenza for so long, and I'd admire it. And then I went on to start collecting all kinds of sports-related footwear, whether it was skates or shoes or whatever. And then I went on to collecting celebrity shoes and boots. And now I have the world's largest collection of celebrity footwear. And I have some very unique pieces. I've been in the media all across the globe with it, including People Magazine, the National Enquirer, you name it. It's pretty interesting. For many years, I collected the shoes. And the exciting part was obtaining the shoes, the chase of the shoes, auction houses, estates, whatever. And I would bring them home. I wouldn't tell anyone I was doing this, not even my family. I have a sauna downstairs. I stick them in a container in the sauna, and I never look at them again. And to this day, there's about 350 pairs of shoes and boots, etc., in the collection, but I've never seen them all out together. And they go on display every so often for charity reasons, or we have a big shoe museum here in Toronto that's world renowned, and they go on exhibit.
What would you say is your rarest shoe that you've got, or your I don't know, cool, whatever? What are some of the favorites?
Well, I'm going to say, because probably a lot of people listening can relate to it, I'll mention a couple. One is I obtained a pair of Wayne Gretzky's rookie skates. Now, they were never supposed to be given to auction, but his father gave it to charity and they were auctioned off. These skates were so comfortable to Wayne Gretzky that, in fact, he broke the blade, and instead of replacing the skates, he replaced the blade. And he wore it for 2 seasons when he was with the Edmonton Oilers. And I'll tell you how I know all this. When I acquired them, they were not autographed. I had a local sports collector follow Wayne Gretzky to a lot of signings, and he was under contract with Upper Deck, and he couldn't sign anything without their permission. So at one point, Wayne Gretzky had a restaurant in Toronto called Wayne Gretzky's, which was a very popular restaurant, closed now, but this sports collector caught him at the restaurant, took the skates, and Wayne Gretzky looked at these skates and said, "How did you get these? No one's ever supposed to have these skates. These were my favorite skates. I wouldn't give them up." And I asked him, he said, "Wayne, would you mind autographing them?" And he did in gold Sharpie, and I have pictures of him signing it. And he asked the guy for $800, and he bought everybody in the bar a drink.
That's great. Share one more with us, if you don't mind. One other good one.
I have 2 pairs of Elvis Presley boots. One is stage worn, and one was his favorite pair that he wore in 3 of his movies, Frankie and Johnny, Spin Out, and Double Trouble. They're very well worn, and I obtained them from the estate of Elvis Presley before all his stuff was getting auctioned. So there's some iconic shoes that I will never give up, but it's just a lot of fun. I enjoy it. And in my waiting room, I have pairs of Marilyn Monroe worn shoes, and I have the first pair of shoes Shaquille O'Neal wore in the NBA, which are a size 23. And I have it in a display, and it doesn't matter what age you are. When you see a size 23 shoe, you're just fascinated by it. So people always comment, They love it. And so I hear all kinds of funny comments about it, but it's fun.
Very fun. And I've enjoyed, in social media, I've seen some of this stuff. So thanks for talking about that. So I've asked everybody this question. It's a fun one, but if you were a toy, any toy at all, what toy would you be and why?
That's a good question. I would be, you're probably too young to know this, but I'd be Ken. And the reason I'd be the Ken doll is so I could have Barbie.
I like that answer, Hartley. I like that a lot. Good for you. That's great. Well, look, one last question. Is there any book that you might want to recommend to everybody that we could all be reading?
One of the books that I read recently was one that you had recommended when I had listened to you speak, and it's called The Fred Factor. It's a very, very easy read, and it has nothing to do with podiatry. It has to do with being a good person. And I think everybody should know what the contents of this book are. Like I say, it's a very easy read. It's almost like a child's book. Whatever you gain from this book, you should put into place in your everyday life. It's a great read.
Yeah, I've recommended that book. It's by Mark Sanborn. It's called The Fred Factor. You're right. And it's a very short book. You could read it in an hour.
Right.
Or 2 at the most. And a lot of people have gotten it with their staff and their teams, and they've read about it together. But it's a real short story about how he moved into a neighborhood, new guy, and his postal carrier, Fred, offered, knocked on the door and introduced himself and said, what do you do? He says, I'm a speaker. He says, oh, you may be traveling. Yes, I can hold your mail. Just tell me. And he says, well, they're not that long, but trips. And he says, okay, well, if it gets too far up over, people will know. If it just piles up on your porch, I'll take care of that. Fred he turned the simple job of delivering mail to people every day into a very high level of service, which served, of course, all the people that he delivered mail for, but, gave him such a purpose and such a treasure with this job that he had when, many people, the mail just comes and comes and comes. And anytime sometimes people can lose that feeling of gratefulness or thankfulness or joy in their job because, Hartley, now you love what you do and you were born to do this, but it's day after day after day after more patients and more patients and more this and more that and more all the rest of it. And it can become a grind. And if you aren't truly devoted to a life of service to others, it starts to be much more hollow. And that's where you can really find the newness in every day. And that Fred factor, I think, is one of the best short little ways of understanding one of the most profound things that we who serve other people can know. So when I get on a call with someone or when I'm speaking on a stage, I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, I was doing these seminars. They were all-day seminars. This is a very long time ago. I was in Hartford, Connecticut. I was out doing public speaking for our company. It was on educational technology. And I went because we didn't have anybody else to go. I said, well, I'll go. And so I went and I did these. And I would get the evaluations back, and they would say things like, Rem's the best speaker I ever heard. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I literally thought to myself, maybe I'm good at this. I had no idea. I didn't know that I was someone that public speaking would come to like this. And I started to realize that. So then I got used to those, and I was in Hartford, Connecticut, one very cold February day, and I had a cold. I didn't feel well. And I remember that morning I put on my suit. I went down to the meeting space where I was going to deliver the full day seminar. It was called Internet for Educators, and I was going to do it. And I remember thinking before I went down, I just have to take one big long breath, talk all day long, and then I'll be done. And pretty much, I guess that's what I did. So I got on the plane, and then I looked at my evaluations. They were not good. They were just okay. Nothing like I had seen. And I thought, oh my gosh, even though I was not well, I was sick, how could I do that? And I think about Bruce Springsteen, who I've seen, 34 times. And when he plays Born to One, it's like the first time he ever played it. And it's like, this giant arena and you're in his living room with 10,000 of your friends. And once he was asked, how do you pull that off, Bruce? And he says, well, I just figure this may be the only time somebody in that building is going to see me and the East Street Band, and I'm not going to let them down. And, and I resolved, I've never spoken to people. I've never gotten on a call with someone and not done my very level best. And, it makes your life a lot more fun, makes you more prosperous, makes things good. So thanks for re-recommending that book back, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it, and I think everybody can enjoy it and learn from it.
Well, that's wonderful.
I think whatever people get out of that book, they should incorporate into their everyday lives and how they deal with people.
Yeah. Yeah, in every way, in absolutely every way. I think you become a happier person. Well, Hartley, I knew this would be fun. I love what you're doing up there, and I love how much you've helped so many of your fellow practitioners. They come from all over Canada to that event. And I, as a person that puts on an annual event every year, was very impressed with what you were doing. So thank you for taking the time. I'm sure I will see you soon on the road. We're vaccinated here and moving forward, and I'm sure that'll pick up steam where you're at as well, and we'll be together again. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. You know how much I admire you, so thank you. It's a real privilege.
Well, privilege is all mine. So have a great rest of the evening. Enjoy your family.
You too.
A formula for prosperity found through balance. Balance in our health, in our work, our family, and our interests. How important is fun and pursuit of joy in your prosperity? And what is your version of Hartley's shoe collection? Well, let me know what you think. You can send me an email at rem@toppractices.com. Prosperity is the entire focus of Top Practices. Most doctors are struggling with the business of medicine, and those that aren't truly understand that through association with other successful practitioners, they can take their success to the next level or something greater, like prosperity. Prosperity in business is a function of mindset, marketing, and management. That's our mission at Top Practices. You can find out more about Top Practices, our marketing and management programs from doctors, our workshops, and our annual summit at toppractices.com. Until next time, this is Rem Jackson. Smile when you wake up, and then have a really great day. Your best day ever. Nothing is more important.